and they're getting into AI like everything else, everybody else is, and so sentiment's taking off.
Yeah, we're still, I think, not quite even halfway there from the peak, right?
So year to date, it's up 102.4% at the moment. So it's been doing very well.
When we talk about like Alibaba's growth right now, a major driver is AI. When the cloud business was in a lot of doubts, Jack supported it. Yeah, and look at now, it's the most promising growth engine of the company. Of course, he cares a lot about AI. He gets daily updates.
Hi everyone, JJ here. Welcome back. Well, Alibaba stock has indeed been soaring this year. It's up well over 100% at this point. Why we're talking about Alibaba and Alibaba stock? Well, some OG viewers of the channel will remember that I was doing videos about Alibaba early on this pod. I did get a bit sidetracked in a big way by Tesla and Elon. I did own Tesla stock for a while, but I have owned Alibaba stock. I do own it. It's been pretty dead money for a long time. But it turns out AI is really giving it a boost this year. It's up well over 100%. The news that Jack Ma is back in a big way. So this is like, say, Jeff Bezos coming back. It's kind of as big news as that. So a lot of good news coming in. So year to date, it's up 102.4% at the moment. So it's been doing very well. And if we go back 3 years, though, it's up 114% only. So most of this rise has been coming this year, but it's still 29% CAGR. That's compound annual growth rate over 3 years. But if we go back further, we can see it took a massive dive. Jack Ma left. Well, there have been a lot of different situations that have driven the stock down. Geopolitical situation, the government situation in China cracking down on tech companies really since the peak here. So it was almost double even what it is now. So compared to the US counterparts in big tech, it has been pretty cheap in the depths. It got down to in the 60s there. But let's see some of the reasons that it's been on a tear this year and the sentiment on AI and Jack Ma coming back. So I want to react to some of this and see what's going on. This is Jack Ma returns to make Alibaba great again. This is Bloomberg. Let's get into it.
According to our reporting from Bloomberg, that Jack Ma is back on Alibaba's campuses and is more directly involved in the company than he has been in half a decade. Now, Ma, of course, as you may know, was once China's wealthiest and most prominent tech leader, and his comeback has been long awaited. And that, of course, that handshake, people remember, with President Xi back in February was seen as his official return.
So there was a falling out with the government back. You might remember if you've been following it, or Chinese companies, Chinese stocks falling out for Jack Ma, and it was to do with Ant Financial. He did say some statements that the government didn't like. He got overconfident really for the situation, the political situation there, and they cracked down, and he kind of left the scene, disappeared. People were kind of worried about him for a while even, but it seems like he's back in the good books, or starting to, and even back at Alibaba. And as I said, he's kind of like the Jeff Bezos really figure. It's the equivalent to Amazon, I would say. And they're getting into AI like everything else, everybody else is, and so sentiment's taking off. So this is not to do with the financials. This video today, I'll just talk about the sentiment really and what they're doing rather than the actual financials, which are okay. But the sentiment was way, way down for all these reasons, and now it's taken off this year.
Great. So it was also a signal that the country's tech sector, private sector, may be back in favor in Beijing as well. But, you know, he always has been, Dave, the face, the personality behind this company. And really, the company without him for the last few years has struggled in some ways, you could say. And we certainly have seen that reflective in the stock price.
It's not that the company's been doing badly at all. It's just sentiment's been really bad for various reasons. But they have been buying back stock hand over fist. While the price has been going down, they have been buying back. So they have been doing the right thing, buying back stock. When the stock is cheap, you see companies, particularly tech companies, sometimes buying back their own stock when the stock price is really high. And for investors, that's not, well, good investors, I think, don't really like to see that, because it's just a waste of money. They should be investing in it somewhere else, but they have been buying back stock at some pretty low prices over the past few years.
Been not just, of course, on the Jack Ma side of things. There's been this whole regulatory regime shift and shift back that's really led to that. And I think using Alibaba just as a juxtaposition of, the changing stories is a really useful exercise to just figure out right now what it actually means, not just for the company, but for the sector moving forward. In fact, when you look at this chart, we put it actually on the chart. We're not taking the chart all the way back to 2014, of course, when it listed first in the U.S. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. Very big deal, of course, net listing right now. But I also remember almost like it was yesterday, the conversations around how massive that ad deal was going into what eventually was a pulling of that listing, the whole common prosperity conversation.
Okay, so this is actually quite a good chart. They put some milestones here, and that one where it started to go down and IPO shelved after a record high. So Jack Ma was involved in that. And that's when the government decided to start cracking down on these big tech companies. I think part of it was about equality in society, where these billionaires were so wealthy, and the government said, we want to rein them in a little bit. But that's when you see a big slump here, and a lot of value investors in particular did buy, on the way down, as I did. And then we see Jack Ma returns to China. We went along the bottom for a very long time. We're up to 2023. Jack Ma sells shares, Alibaba shelves cloud spinoff. So that was just in the depths. And then we have the meeting with Jack Ma and Xi Jinping here, and the cloud and AI drive earnings, so that it hasn't just the spend, it is starting to drive earnings as well. So some really good signs. And of course, anything to do with AI and robotics has seen some sentiment go through the roof and a rise in the stock price.
And of course, eventually what then led to Chinese president meeting Jack Ma, and of course that big meeting that took place following the DeepSeek moment early this year, which did include, of course, Jack Ma there.
Yes, the DeepSeek moment that sent the US sort of AI-related stocks down at the time, because DeepSeek was pretty good, and they seem to have done it for a pretty cheap price in China compared to US build. But there's still a lot of money going into Chinese AI. I mean, I know people have different views on Chinese companies. A lot of people don't like it. I dare say a lot of viewers to the channel don't like it. And same with the Chinese car companies, EV companies like BYD. So I do expect in the comments some pushback about that. The way that I see it is to be diversified in US and in China, that, two of the biggest economies, and diversified elsewhere in Europe and elsewhere too, from the stocks that I actually do own. I like to be not just in US stocks, or not just in Chinese stocks, diversified globally, especially as this AI turns into a bubble. I don't think you want to be in one particular area, which a lot of people are pouring into AI. But if it is a bubble, if we look back to the dot-com bubble, we see what happened there. And it did work out over the long term. But even Amazon went down over 90% during the dot-com bubble bust.
And it also brings to mind, and here's a useful statistic in case some of our viewers missed it, right? Alibaba was back then the biggest stock on the Hang Seng, is right now, again, the biggest stock, heaviest weighted stock to be more specific, on the Hang Seng Index. I just had to look at my terminal right now. At the peak, or October 27, 2017, at one point, Alibaba was valued at 860-ish billion US dollars. It was sixth in the world as far as market cap. Right now, it's about 360, and it's ranked about 30. So it's come back. But certainly there's a long way back to the very...
There's a long way back to come, and it is going back. So there is a long runway, and that was what was attractive for me as it dropped. But, Alibaba kind of lost its growth, but could it get it back? It's definitely growing in certain areas. It's going more international, and the AI build out. But added to that, this massive positive sentiment around AI.
Yes.
But, who would have thought we'd be here talking about this very story at this point in time?
Yeah, we're still, I think, not quite even halfway there from the peak, right? I want to bring in Luz Ding now. She joins us now with more. So tell us a bit more. I mean, it's a great story. Why do you think Jack Ma is back, and at what capacity?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So, what we have been hearing from employees at Alibaba and some other sources that Jack has been more involved in the company, the most involved since 2020, and he's been showing up on campuses. He's also getting behind a lot of big decisions in Alibaba, like recently the big investment of 50 billion yuan of subsidies into food delivery, and of course he cares a lot about AI. He gets daily updates. And in one case, Reuters told us that he was messaging a senior manager 3 times a day, and that's a lot of watching. And then, of course, he does not have a official title in the company, from what we heard. But yeah, he's just he's around.
Well,
He's
how much?
definitely around. I mean, there's a $50 billion figure mentioned about investment in AI as just a start, and they plan to build out data centers around the world, which could be problematic in some ways politically, you'd have to think. But if you think of companies like Palantir in the US, I think this some's just equally problematic. I've done a video or two about Palantir and the surveillance that's developing in the US. So for somebody that's not inside the US, I can see both sides. And as I said, number one and number two biggest economies in the world, to be involved in that in terms of investing, I don't see as a bad thing, especially if the US actually has some sort of crash or a financial crisis. The last big financial crisis was global, so you can't really escape, the international links. But the stock market in the US is more elevated than China at the moment, for sure.
Much of the stock price rally can be credited to Jack Ma being back?
Yeah, I think so. A lot when we talk to people, a lot of the one word that came a lot is the morale. And
Okay.
he's still the moral leader. He comes back, and that means that some of the worst days that you two described earlier has passed. And then the company is steady shipped, and then a lot of confidence being brought to the company, and that means a lot.
So morale, it does have a lot to do with it, I think, with companies with sentiment and morale at the actual company. When you think of what Elon was doing, getting into politics, and he, went full into MAGA, I think the morale at the company probably dropped, and they were losing sales. I think to some extent it's still like that, although sentiment seems to have picked up around AI with Elon pivoting to AI. But that's a different story and different videos.
Of course, when we talk about like Alibaba's growth right now, a major driver is AI, and then that's when Alibaba. Years ago, Jack Ma supported the venture, and then when the cloud business was in a lot of doubts, Jack supported it, and then and look at now, it's the most promising growth engine of the company, rather than a lot of its Alibaba's competitors, JD and Meituan, deep into the food delivery war.
Indeed. So let's just have a look at this. This is well-known fund managers. You might know this site, Dataroma, which tracks some of the big, really value-orientated investors, and we can see who owns it. David Tepper, well, not really value, more growth, or a bit of both, you could say. His portfolio, he's been pounding the table. Actually, the last video I did on Alibaba, I think it was on another channel, not this one, he was definitely pounding the table on Alibaba, and he's done very well out of it. And just in the most recent activity in the last quarter, he's taken some money off the table there. But you can see some of the other well-known fund managers there have been reducing a little bit. David Tepper being the biggest proponent of Alibaba over the last, I don't know, year or two, I would say. So what do you think of this? I'd love to know what you think. Do you think that the run with Alibaba will continue after being really dead for quite some time, going down that big slope and along the bottom? Are they going to catch up to the US counterparts? Because in terms of market valuation, it has lagged behind, but seems to be doing a big catch up because of this AI talk, not just talk, actually doing a lot, and robotics as well. They're getting involved in, just similar to what the US companies. There's a deal with NVIDIA, and there was talk of not getting the chips from NVIDIA, but they seem to be doing okay getting the chips and making their own arrangements within China. But that's another story. If there's interest in this video, I will do more on Alibaba. For obvious reasons, I do follow it. I do own stock, which has been doing well this year, very well. And also, I'm going to put a link to a related video on screen now. Do go and see that now. And do join the channel as a member if you want to. Get videos around 7 hours usually ahead of it going public. And members also get priority reply to comments as well. So if you're interested in that, do subscribe to the channel and become a member if you want to. And thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.